Alright guys, so here we go. Paper set up. This paper needs to be cut in half both ways, so I'm going to measure off here. This is 11 inches, so I'm going to cut it in half. That would be 5.5 here. Nice light dot there. 5.5 on this side. Little dot over there. This is 8.5 on the side, so this is going to be 4.25. This is going to be our first point of perspective on this side. Same thing on this side, 4.25. Here's our second point of perspective. So here are two main points, here and here. So all points on this side of the paper are going to be going to this point. All our lines on this side of the paper going to this point here. So to start with our first building here, I'm just going to cut my paper in half here using my ruler, of course. Remember, our rule of making a straight line is, of course, always put your pencil on the point. Put your ruler up against it, line up your bottom point, spread your fingers out nice and wide, hold that ruler down tight, make a nice light line down the middle there like that, okay? So we need to choose points above and below to represent the height of our first building. Now you don't want to make it super small, but I mean, you suppose you could. You don't want to make it super tall though, so I kind of like to put mine up high and then just a little bit below. So my first building is going to start up here and it's going to end right about down here, okay? So now I need to make our diamond shaped here. So I'm going to very lightly line up my first point to the side, draw a line, second point, line up, draw a line, keeping these lines nice and light because we're going to be erasing a lot of these. Once again over here, line up, draw a line. And we want to make two parallel lines here to end our first building. Once again, you can make them a certain distance. If I wanted to make them, an inch over or whatever, but sometimes it's fun to just play with them. I mean, they don't have to be perfect every single time. So as long as they're parallel, we want to try to keep them as parallel as possible. If I was a smart man, I'd sit here and measure and say, okay, there's an inch there, and here's an inch down here. It's probably a good way to do it, and say, okay, now I can line these 2 points up. And say there's one side of my building. Do the same thing over here. An inch there, and an inch over here. There's my second part. Line that up nice and smooth. There we go, and that would be our first building. We can go ahead and darken these lines in now, because we know that these are part of our buildings. We can go ahead and make nice dark marks to show that these are permanently in place. Ready to go. Alright, these guys too. Once again, we always want to use that ruler. We never want to try to freehand these because you can tell, even the best of us have trouble drawing a perfectly straight line, making it look good. So I tend to notice if a line's not drawn with a ruler, you can usually spot it pretty well. So there's our first building sitting out front. Our street's going to be out here. Our line's going off the distance, but this is our corner building here. The next one we're going to be doing on this side, once again, I'm going to have this building touching this building, so these two buildings are going to be butting up against each other here. So our line's going to come and follow this same line of the left-hand side of the building over here. Then we're just going to follow that up. So I'm just going to come up here, draw a line, and just kind of keep going up. And I decide it's going to be pretty tall. We'll come out to like right about there. Okay? So from this top point, we need to go to our 2 points of perspective again. This one all the way over here. Take it all the way across, nice and light. This one down here, all the way down, nice and light. This building is going off into infinity here, so we want to chop it off. I'm going to make it pretty narrow here, maybe just the width of the ruler, maybe a bit more. Make it a bit better. There, nice and light. And then maybe this one is tucked in behind this one here, so I'll just cut this one off right here. There we go. So here's our second building sitting right next to this building here. We'll make this one nice and dark. He is officially done. Maybe it's a she, who knows. There. There. There we go. And there we go. Okay. We can now officially erase this line in between here. I have my nice gum eraser here. I can get rid of this line once again. If you make your lines nice and light, it should be no problem erasing these marks here. Okay, so we don't need that one anymore. Realistically, we don't need these guys anymore either. Okay, we can go ahead and get rid of all those. Sorry if the camera's shaking. Like that. Oh, and then one, I forgot one too. Times people forget this one, and I did the same thing too. I got to draw in this street line too. This one that's sitting around the street, it's got to be darkened in as well. So can't forget that one. That's part of our building. Okay. Over on this side, I'm going to have a little gap here. So we're going to have a little alleyway or a little street in between these two buildings. So instead of coming straight out of this one, we're going to have this one come over a little bit, just enough for a little alleyway. I'm going to come up here nice and light, follow that up, parallel lines, all our lines stay vertical. This one's only going to come about that high. All right. Once again, from this point, we're going to go to our 2 points of perspective again. This one all the way down. And this one, we're going to line up to this other point here, like this, except the rule is, once again, when you hit a building, just go ahead and stop it. Don't draw it all the way through because you're just going to end up erasing all that anyway. So draw it over to one of the buildings, stop it right there. Just make sure it lines up to this point. Don't have it lining up over here or down here. All these lines that go this way have to line up to that point. Okay? So once again, we have a building here that goes off into infinity. We need to chop this guy off. Let's chop him off right about here. I'm just eyeballing this, seeing it looks about parallel to me. Okay, and this guy maybe just disappears right behind there. Maybe there's a little mark right there. We can see it chops him off. Okay. Now, the one you don't want to forget here, we have all these lines. Since there is an alleyway, we do have to do at the very bottom of our first line, there has to be a line that goes from here, lines up with over here, but it's just this little bottom of the building mark here. People forget this one all the time. And make sure that it lines up at this point on the far side. If you don't do that, it's going to look strange. So just a little mark right there. If it goes up here or down there, it's going to look weird. It's just a tiny little mark, but it makes a big difference. So this building is officially ready to go. I can darken in all my lines here, here, this little guy there, darken in this guy here, and here, this guy as well. I'm not going to forget my street level this time. Just over that part right there. Okay. Take my nice gum eraser again. Get rid of these in-between lines. There. Get rid of this. There. Okay. Alright, so there's 3 buildings here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up here. I'm just going to create a couple more on each side. And then it'll kind of show you how I'm doing the same kind of buildings. I'll do some that butt up against each other. I'll do some that are taller, some that are shorter. But then I'm just going to kind of fill out this street here. So I'll be back in just a minute.